Welcome to Exploring Global Political Systems, 6 Crucial Insights. You might think you know politics, but there's a lot more beneath the surface. Did you know that modern monarchies still wield significant power, influencing everything from tourism to policy? Or that in some democracies, up to 25% of certain populations face voting obstacles? Our world is changing fast. Countries are now governed by technocrats, experts in science and economics, shaping policies with precision. Meanwhile, grassroots movements are rewriting the rules of engagement, proving that real change starts from the bottom up. In this series, we'll dive into the rise of surveillance states, where governments use advanced tech to keep tabs on their citizens. You'll also discover how environmental politics are reshaping global power dynamics, pushing nations towards a greener future. Get ready for a journey through hidden monarchies, democracies in crisis, and the quiet revolutions shaping our world. Each chapter reveals strategies and surprising facts that will change how you view global politics. So, buckle up and join us as we uncover the crucial insights behind the headlines. Chapter 1: Hidden Monarchies. The power behind the throne. Monarchies might seem like relics of the past, but their influence is far from gone. In countries like the United Kingdom and Japan, monarchies play crucial roles that aren't always obvious. Did you know the British monarchy generates around £1.8 billion in tourism revenue annually? That's a lot of cash for a ceremonial role. In Japan, the emperor has no governing power but serves as a symbol of unity and tradition. This subtle power helps maintain stability in the ever-changing political landscape. Queen Elizabeth II once said, "I have to be seen to be believed." This speaks to the monarch's role in public life. Visibility equals influence. In the Middle East, monarchies like Saudi Arabia wield direct political power. The king's decisions can shape global oil prices, affecting economies worldwide. Surprisingly, many people don't realize how these royal families' extensive business ventures impact global markets. For instance, Saudi Aramco, owned by the Saudi royal family, is valued at over $2 trillion. Monarchies also have a unique way of maintaining power through soft power tactics. For example, the royal family of Bhutan promotes gross national happiness as a measure of national success, a strategy that has garnered global admiration. In Thailand, the king's influence over the military and politics is profound, yet he maintains an image of a unifying national figure. Chapter 2: Democracy in Crisis. When voting fails, democracy is often hailed as the ideal form of government, but what happens when it doesn't work as intended? In some places, democracy is in crisis. Voter suppression is one major issue. In the United States, a study found that 25% of African Americans faced obstacles in voting compared to 8% of white voters. This is a clear sign that the system needs fixing. In India, the world's largest democracy, issues like vote buying and electoral violence mar the democratic process. During the 2019 elections, there were over 600 incidents of poll-related violence. This undermines the very essence of a fair and free electoral process. Former Indian President, Dr. Abdul Kalam, once remarked, "Unless India stands up to the world, no one will respect us." This highlights the need for a robust and fair democracy. Meanwhile, in countries like Brazil, electronic voting machines are supposed to prevent fraud, but they've also sparked conspiracy theories about rigging. Even though Brazil's 2018 elections saw a 30% reduction in voter fraud reports, the trust in the system remains shaky. These machines, while advanced, can't solve underlying issues of mistrust and misinformation. In some European countries, rising populism challenges democratic norms. Hungary, for example, has seen its democratic institutions eroded under Prime Minister Viktor Orban's rule. Freedom House now ranks Hungary as only partly free, a stark reminder that democracy can backslide. Moreover, the phenomenon of democratic backsliding isn't limited to any one region. Poland, once a poster child for post-Soviet democratization, faces similar issues. The government's attempts to control the judiciary led to massive protests and EU sanctions. This crisis of democracy shows that even established democracies are not immune to decay. In African countries like Zimbabwe, elections are often marred by allegations of fraud and intimidation. During the 2018 elections, the Zimbabwe Election Support Network reported irregularities in about 40% of polling stations. Nelson Mandela once said, "The ballot is stronger than the bullet, but this only holds true if the ballot's integrity is maintained." To wrap it up, when voting fails, democracy itself is in danger. From voter suppression to rising populism, these challenges highlight the need for vigilance and reform. Democracy is a living, breathing entity that requires constant care and commitment. Chapter 3: The Rise of Technocracies. Governance by experts. Technocracies are gaining ground in today's world, where decisions are increasingly based on expertise rather than politics. In Singapore, the government is famous for its technocratic style. Leaders are often highly educated in fields like engineering, economics, and law. This has helped Singapore grow into a global financial hub with a GDP per capita of over $60,000. China also relies heavily on technocrats. Many top officials, including President Xi Jinping, have backgrounds in engineering. This approach has contributed to China's rapid infrastructure development and technological advances. In fact, China spends around 2.4% of its GDP on research and development, one of the highest rates in the world. In Germany, Angela Merkel, a physicist by training, led the country through numerous crises with a steady hand. Her scientific approach to problems, like the COVID-19 pandemic, earned her high praise. Germany's handling of the pandemic, with a lower death rate than many of its European neighbors, showed the effectiveness of technocratic governance. The concept of technocracy isn't new. The term gained popularity in the 1930s during the Great Depression, with the belief that experts could better manage the economy than politicians. Today, this idea is seeing a revival as we face complex global issues. Author Parag Khanna notes in his book, Technocracy in America, that we need leaders who think long-term, beyond the election cycle. In Finland, another technocratic government, leaders often have advanced degrees and professional experience relevant to their roles. The Finnish education system, which is one of the best in the world, is a testament to their policy-making approach. Finland spends about 7% of its GDP on education, more than the OECD average. But technocracies aren't without criticism. Critics argue that they can be undemocratic since experts are not elected by the public. There's also the risk of prioritizing efficiency over human values. For instance, in Italy, technocrat-led governments have sometimes imposed austerity measures that hurt ordinary citizens. Chapter 4: Silent Revolutions, Grassroots Movements Changing the Game. Grassroots movements have the power to transform societies quietly but effectively. Take the civil rights movement in the United States. It started at the grassroots level with people like Rosa Parks and grew into a nationwide push for equality. The movement's success shows how collective action can lead to significant change. In recent years, the #MeToo movement has become a global phenomenon. What began as a simple hashtag turned into a powerful force against sexual harassment and assault. According to Pew Research, 61% of Americans say they are more likely to speak out against harassment since the movement began. This shift in public attitudes highlights the power of grassroots activism. In India, the Chipko movement in the 1970s saw villagers, particularly women, hugging trees to prevent deforestation. Their efforts led to increased awareness and eventually policy changes in environmental conservation. The movement showed that even rural communities could influence national policy. One of the most significant modern grassroots movements is Black Lives Matter. It started in 2013 and has since become a global campaign against racial injustice. The movement's influence is evident in the widespread protests and policy discussions it has sparked. For instance, in 2020, Minneapolis pledged to dismantle its police department in response to the protests. Grassroots movements often succeed by using innovative strategies. In Hong Kong, pro-democracy activists used apps like FireChat to communicate without internet, showing how technology can aid in organizing efforts. The Umbrella Movement, named for the umbrellas protesters used to shield themselves from tear gas, drew global attention to their cause. Environmental activism is another area where grassroots efforts are making a mark. Greta Thunberg started a solo protest in Sweden, which quickly grew into the Global Fridays for Future movement. Millions of students worldwide have joined her in demanding urgent climate action. According to a 2019 survey, 57% of teenagers in the US have participated in climate strikes or know someone who has. Grassroots movements also thrive on local issues. In Flint, Michigan, residents banded together to address the city's water crisis. Their persistent activism brought national attention to the issue and forced the government to take action. This local effort shows how community-driven movements can lead to significant policy changes. Chapter 5: Authoritarianism with a Digital Twist, Surveillance States in the Modern Age. Authoritarian regimes are using technology to maintain control like never before. China is at the forefront of this trend with its extensive surveillance network. The country has an estimated 415 million CCTV cameras, many equipped with facial recognition technology. This system can track individuals and monitor their movements, creating a high level of control over the population. The Chinese government also uses the social credit system, which ranks citizens based on their behavior. Actions like jaywalking or buying too many video games can lower your score, affecting your ability to travel or get loans. This level of surveillance is unprecedented and serves as a powerful tool for social control. Russia, too, has embraced digital authoritarianism. The Kremlin uses a combination of cyber attacks, internet censorship, and disinformation campaigns to maintain power. According to a report by Freedom House, Russia ranks low on internet freedom, with strict regulations limiting free speech online. Iran's government employs similar tactics. During protests, they often shut down the internet to prevent activists from organizing and sharing information. In November 2019, Iran experienced a near-total internet blackout during widespread demonstrations. This tactic, known as a digital curfew, is becoming increasingly common in authoritarian states. North Korea takes digital control to the extreme. The country has a highly restricted internet, with only a few government-approved websites accessible. Citizens are closely monitored, and the government uses digital means to maintain a tight grip on information flow. Even in democracies, there are concerns about surveillance. In the United States, programs like PRISM have sparked debates about privacy and government overreach. Edward Snowden's revelations showed the extent of NSA surveillance, leading to ongoing discussions about the balance between security and privacy. The use of AI in surveillance is also growing. In Hong Kong, during the pro-democracy protests, authorities used AI to identify and track protesters. This technology can analyze vast amounts of data quickly, making it a powerful tool for any regime seeking to maintain control. Authoritarian governments often justify surveillance as necessary for national security. However, this comes at the cost of personal freedoms and privacy. George Orwell's 1984 famously warned of a dystopian future where surveillance is pervasive, and today's technology brings us closer to that reality. One unique aspect of digital authoritarianism is its global reach. China exports its surveillance technology to other countries, spreading its model of control. Countries like Venezuela and Zimbabwe have adopted Chinese surveillance systems, showing the appeal of these tools to other authoritarian regimes. Chapter 6: The Green Wave, Environmental Politics and Power Shifts. Environmental politics are reshaping the global political landscape in profound ways. The urgency of climate change has forced many governments to rethink their policies. In 2019, the European Union unveiled the European Green Deal, aiming to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This ambitious plan includes reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030. Countries like New Zealand are also leading the charge. Under Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand passed the Zero Carbon Act, committing to zero carbon emissions by 2050. This legislation sets a strong example for other nations to follow. One interesting trend is the rise of green political parties. In Germany, the Green Party has become a major force, often playing a crucial role in coalitions. In the 2021 federal election, they won nearly 15% of the vote, highlighting the growing importance of environmental issues to voters. Youth activism is another powerful driver of change. Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Future movement has mobilized millions of young people worldwide. In 2019, an estimated 4 million people participated in climate strikes across 150 countries, demanding urgent action from their governments. Corporate responsibility is also under scrutiny. Companies are being pressured to adopt sustainable practices. According to a 2020 report by the Carbon Disclosure Project, over 1,500 companies have committed to science-based targets to reduce their emissions. This shift is not just about ethics but also about business survival in a changing world. One unique aspect of environmental politics is the concept of climate justice. This idea focuses on the disproportionate impact of climate change on vulnerable communities. Activists argue that wealthy nations, which have contributed most to the problem, should take the lead in addressing it. In Brazil, the destruction of the Amazon rainforest has become a global concern. President Jair Bolsonaro's policies have led to increased deforestation, prompting international outcry. The Amazon is often called the lungs of the Earth, and its preservation is crucial for global climate stability. The Paris Agreement, signed by 196 countries, aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. This international treaty represents a collective effort to tackle climate change. However, its success depends on the commitment and action of each signatory nation.